Come ye, buy and eat, yea, come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good. Let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come to me, herein your soul shall live. I will make a covenant with you, everlasting, the sure mercies of Jesus.
Good morning, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing in Isaiah chapter 52. And, there we go, that's better. And we were, we had talked about how the call here to awake really connects the thought here to what was going on in the previous chapter. So let's see if I'm going to pick it up. And he wants them to wake up and stand up and face judgment. But he promises mercy. You know, it's interesting, that call to awake. And one of the things, it's an interesting term, because of course we have in our modern society people who call themselves woke, right? And it makes you think, because what is the concept behind it? It's like, my eyes have been opened. I've been awakened from sleep. I was asleep before. I was lost, and now I'm found. It's the same kind of mentality. And so when I did my song about racism, I said that only in the blood of Jesus can you find redemption, because they seem to be seeking redemption. They are awakening to their need for racial redemption. And it's like, it's funny because they're saying, I want to answer for the sins of my ancestors. Because they don't believe in answering for their own sins. You know what I mean? They're knowing, like, I am a sinner. It's like, no, I'm a white man. That's their confession. And that means I'm bad. All men have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So there was a call forth to the arm of the Lord, and then to Jerusalem to awake. Wake up. Like I said, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. There is that idea of like, Lord, don't you see? You know, so when they start, there's this rhetorical questioning of God. Art thou not he that did this and that? You know, it's a way of bringing to remembrance. And what it says, my hand is not shortened that it cannot save. You know, because people might make the accusation, well, God's not going to do anything. They don't have any faith in God. And sometimes it seems like we need God to wake up. It seems that from our perspective. Obviously he does, but in the scriptures, you know, when it says, give attentive ear to my prayer, God hears all the prayers. If he wants to. I mean, it's not like we know God is omniscient, all knowing. He knows everything. He knows all the prayers before they're prayed. But we want God to bend his ear towards us in a way, and that to us makes us feel like we're really being listened to. It's like we want his arm to wake up, like he's really going to save us. Of course. And Jerusalem needs to wake up like it's really time to hear what God has to say. Wake up. And when God speaks, we need to be alert and listening. You know, when Jesus was preaching and he'd say, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. People needed to wake up and listen. All right, now let's read chapter 52. I don't think we need to go back to any of the specifics of the previous one. They're saying, I'm going to take away the cup of trembling from you and give it to your enemies, those that afflicted you. And then in 52 it says, Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion. Put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. Wait a second. I did read this, but wait, we didn't cover this. I checked it. I was like, for a second, I'm like, I think it's just because I did read it at the end of the study last week that it seems too familiar, but we did read it. Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth thou shalt no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake thyself from the dust, arise and sit down, O Jerusalem, loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus saith the Lord, ye have sold yourselves for naught, and ye shall be redeemed without money. For thus saith the Lord, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Now therefore, what have I here? That my people is taken away for naught? They that rule over them make them to howl, saith the Lord. And my name continually every day is blasphemed. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. Thy watchmen shall lift up the voice, with the voice together shall they sing. For they shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion. The wording is a little weird there. For they shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion. Break forth into joy, sing together, ye waste places of Jerusalem, for the Lord hath comforted his people, and hath redeemed Jerusalem. The Lord hath made bare his holy arm. Excuse me. I need a drink of water. Oops. The Lord hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations. And all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Depart ye, go ye out from hence. Thence. Touch no unclean thing. Go ye out of the midst of her, be ye clean, that bear the vessels of the Lord. For ye shall not go out with haste, nor go by flight. For the Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your reward. Reward. That's a better way to say it. It's not reward. It's a weird word we never use anymore. It means rear guard. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. As many were astonished at thee, his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. Who has believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? You know, the call to awake and the revealing of God's arm. When God makes bare his holy arm, you know, that's like God's rolling up his sleeves. You know, his arms are out. I can see him. You know what I mean? It's the idea of you can see God at work. Also, you know. You know. Dad's taking his shirt off. All right. So Zion, put on thy strength, put on thy beautiful garments. O Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. You call to put on the beautiful garments. That harkens to the ideas in Revelation where the the new Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven, clothed as a bride, adorned for her husband. And to her was given that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. I'm skipping ahead a little in Revelation. And for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. The fine linen, the white garments of Jerusalem, is the saints' righteousness. And you look at in the face of what? Well, in the face of this destruction, they turned to idols. The thing is, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know exactly where the mercy of God is at any given time. I don't control that. I trust in it. I look to it. I believe in it. I suggest you do the same thing. That those who trust the Lord, first and foremost, and are attentive to his word, wake up and listen. The Lord is inclined to mercy to them. Even when they screw up. You look at the example of Peter versus Judas. You know what I mean? Because Jesus had specifically said, those who deny me before men, well, I deny before my Father and before his angels. And Peter denied him thrice. Yet we know he was forgiven. And Judas, well, he went and hanged himself. I know there's other things people suggest, but whatever. It seems to say he hung himself. There's no good there. There's no reconciliatory meeting after the resurrection or anything. Point is, there are things like Ananias and Sapphira. I use that example a lot. They were struck dead. They lied to the Holy Ghost. There's a line. We say we have faith, and we should have enough to know better than to trifle with the living God. Do not trifle with him. When you think about the big bad times that come along, stand up for what's right. This is not the same as your little old sins. Your normal garden variety. Notice it talked about thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. That's like our society. Our society is all drunk and stupid. They're all acting like insensible people. I'm watching high-level intellectual epidemiologist type scientist after scientist coming forward saying things like the government bureaucrats, Fauci and all that, were wrong from the beginning. And sociologists coming forward to say that the world has been hypnotized. There's a mass formation, as they call it. I posted a link to that on Facebook. Mass formation. And what happens is a lot of people, and I've run into this, a lot of people don't even agree with what's going on, but they're going along with it anyways. Let's just warm ourselves at the fire. We don't know Jesus. Then no one's going to say nothing. We'll just get along. We'll just go along to get along. Wouldn't want to upset things. Wouldn't want to upset the apple. We don't want anybody to get upset, so we'll just do what we're told. And everything will be all right. You're out of your mind. If you think by continuing to do what you're told, anything's going to change, you're wrong. And that's an excuse. In my opinion, it's just, at this point, if you know it's wrong, it's just an excuse for cowardice. And maybe that's something it's not that, I should be like Judas and go hang myself if I've been a coward, but that's something to be confronted in yourself, to know. I can't be such a coward. Can't do that. I can't allow myself to be that person. Because the truth will come out. I mean, it already is out. The problem is if people continue to cower, it's hard to move anything because the politicians feel that, everyone's along with them. People are like drunken, though. They don't know what's for their own good anymore. They're doing things they know are wrong, saying things they know are wrong, acting out things they know are wrong, and that's not righteous. You know? Like I said, on some level, tests come, and they have two purposes. They can help us assess where we are, and also they can be judgment. They can be like final exam. Anyways, put on thy beautiful garments. Because the thing is, the city went through all these things. The sons are fainted. It went through all these horrors. When it talks about taking off the bands of thy neck, what that means? Having a neck band. How'd you like to be chained by the neck? And dragged off across the land to walk to some place where you'll be a slave. It's a very degraded state, and he's saying, put on your strength, Zion. Put on your beautiful garments. Take off the bands of your neck, captive daughter. Because God, one of the things that Jesus offers is to make us free. He makes us free. Takes off the bands of our neck and gives us a new purpose in life. Makes us free from the captivity of sin and iniquity. Yes, brings us into his service, but he's freeing us from the other. Not to set us off like some sort of animal. You're free. It's not that kind of freedom. It's like you're free to put on your beautiful garments and take your rightful place, you chosen of God. The strength that God has given you, because the remnant will return and the remnant will survive, the remnant will persist, the remnant will serve the Lord in whatever capacity. Have a seat. Remember in the last chapter, she was laid down as the ground in the street, and people went over. Just a human doormat, Jerusalem. Even though it's not a human, but it is personified on many occasions. In Revelation, we see that often. It's like I said, and also Mystery Babylon is a symbolic, corrupt Jerusalem. It is, in fact, in Revelation, they so far remove Mystery Babylon from that they don't, the connection is very subtle. But for historic reasons, prophetically, Mystery Babylon as portrayed, the whore, that is certainly a reference to the sort of the flip side of the holy city, which is the city that is occupied by the uncircumcised and the unclean, the unholy. Those are the men, uncircumcised, yes, Gentiles, but also unclean. And remember, not all Jews are circumcised. Now, if your parents are good Jews and all that, and following the traditions of their elders, they have their child circumcised the 8th day or whatever, right? By the rabbis do it or whatever. They have them circumcised. I don't know what they're talking about for some reason. It's bugging me. But some parents didn't. It's not just a reference to the Gentiles. It's a reference to Jews who just didn't care about their heritage. Throughout history, there are times, in the Bible, there are instances where they found a whole generation that just weren't circumcised, and they had to go circumcise them because they weren't following the covenant even to that degree. Why bother? Circumcision is not a, I didn't have any of my kids circumcised in infancy. I never willingly do that at all. you know. Unless, I mean, it was done because God made it part of the covenant. It was of necessity. You circumcise your children. You bring them into my covenant. They are chosen of God. They are elect. In that sense. But there's another sense that reveals that each man, though he may be born into the covenant, just like from the very beginning, was it Isaac or Ishmael? No, Isaac. It had to be through Sarah. But then it's like, well, Isaac gets married and he has a wife. He has 2 sons. So who inherits the covenant? Well, the one who wants it. And then the other one who's profane and doesn't care for his covenant, who cares? No, he doesn't inherit it. God hates that. He hates that one who doesn't see it in, like, understand the value. You've been given a taste of life. You know what I mean? Do you love it? You know? Are you thankful for it? Would you like more? You know, that's what, and seek it out. When we find God in the source of life, you know, He is the river of water of life that flows forever through His Spirit and to everlasting life. So, the uncircumcised and the unclean, it could refer to Gentiles, but also is referring to renegade Jews and their offspring, who care not for the covenant and care not for the things that, you know, like it says, you know, you who bear the vessels of the Lord. And he talks about the cleanliness there. I forget wherever, but we'll get to it. And shake thyself in the dust, arise, sit down, O Jerusalem, loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, captive daughter of Zion. For thus saith the Lord, you've sold yourself for naught. I mean, you sold yourselves out for naught. You didn't get anything in return. You know what I mean? It makes me think of that thing that people always quote Ben Franklin as saying, you know, those who, something like this, that those who would exchange freedom for security will have neither security nor freedom. That's probably the most bad rendering of that you may have heard, but it's just like that. I mean, there may be more to it or less. I think it says they deserve neither freedom nor security, actually, which is more of an opinion. But there is that sense is when you give up your freedom, the security, having your rights secured is what the government's supposed to do. It's supposed to secure your rights. It's not supposed to secure your health. It's not supposed to secure your happiness, your well-being. All that stuff is left to you. You know what I mean? That's why we're allowed to eat as much food as we want and become unhealthy and fat. Because that's up to you. That's your health. That's your freedom. You know, like I said, it's like, you know, I think I start putting food monitors on people's mouths. As long as, you know, we're taking care of people's safety. We can't have people being obese. It's the number one health crisis in the world, in America especially. You know? Do you need ankle monitors to make sure we're running as much as we should every day? You know, if you don't start running, it starts delivering maybe electrical charges. Move it! Get exercising. No, the government doesn't get involved in all that stuff. They're here to secure our rights. When you give up the freedoms you have by right, well, you've lost your freedom. And now you're not secure either. Because the whole point of security is so you can exercise your rights. A prisoner in jail, you're secure. You know what I mean? In a prison cell, secure the prisoner. That's security. That's not the kind of security. People have got a wrong idea of what security means. Or what it should mean. Because it can mean a lot of things, is my point. But they sold themselves for, you know, what'd you get in exchange for idolatry? You went after strange gods? What did they give you? Where are the riches? Where are the, you know. So they sold themselves for nothing. You shall be redeemed without money. Not with nothing, but no money. I mean, You didn't exchange something carnal. Money is, I think the word silver probably, because the word silver means money. Do I have to look it up? Should I look? I made that assertion. I want to be right. I want to be right, so I'm going to look real quick. Let's peek. It's the point I noticed. I remember when I was studying, I was always curious what the word for money was, and it was just silver. Because obviously they didn't, it doesn't say shekels as far as I recall. I could be wrong. Well, that's a measurement, and sometimes it says shekels of this and shekels of that. They had a measuring, you know what I mean? In fact, that's how most that's how most money would be done. Yeah, it means silver. That's what it means. It's the word I kept running into. I'm like, okay, this word money just means silver. So give me some of your silver, which means it's just the metal commonly used for medium value coins comes to be the actual name of money. Kesef means silver. You can see the way it's used. It's translated mostly silver, but also money 100 times. That's in the New American Standard Bible translation. I like that they put how many times it's translated. This word is a lot in the Bible. Look at this. 403 occurrences. Okay. Oh, wrong thing. There we go. This. Okay. So money, while when you sell yourselves for nothing, it implies, like I said, and then you should be redeemed without money. It implies that they, like I said, where's all the riches you got? Where is the benefits? Because God's benefits are not. He can bless. He blesses us in this world. He said, when they said, we've forsaken all for you, what shall we have? I'm not sure if I got the right context. I'm not going to go on a hunt for this verse. But there's a place in the New Testament where the Lord says, yes, you who have forsaken all for me shall receive, not just in the world to come, but in this world, houses and family and all that. And, I do take that in when you tap into fellow believers on an intimate level, they become like a new family. I've experienced this in church a bit at one point, but the problem, it just still was a dysfunctional family, unfortunately. But in my own small circle, I feel much more this way. Like I have a very tight circle of people around me, and I feel like that is my family. It's not all natural family, and it's not all my natural family. You know what I mean? Because, there are friends that stick closer than brothers. And so, that's not meant to be anything about. What it means is blood doesn't mean everything. You know what I mean? There are other factors. Sometimes people are closer, even though they're not related by blood. Though most of the people around me are related by blood or marriage. But still, what I would say about that is that when you have that tight-knit family, you receive, you then possess what they possess in a sense. It doesn't happen often in church, but you feel like at home with them. You feel at home in your friend's home. You feel at home in your neighbor's home because the church is so close. You can receive more. Paul would go around and be received into people's houses. He forsook all. Most of us aren't forsaking all, so I don't, if we truly forsook all, to serve the Lord, we would find so many people willing to help us. If we were called to do so. And people often do that. And they do have a lot of help. And they do have a broader experience in life of family. It's not just the people blood related to them, but it's a broader community that is like family. Well, and that's an example of like riches you can't exactly see. Like you can ask someone how many kids they have, but you can't exactly see how rich their church life may be or not. You know? How rich their experience of other believers is or not. You can't necessarily see that. Anyways, but I'm getting... it's not really slightly off track, because I'm just thinking in terms of the material wealth that people see and they desire, like money, land, and also in children. And some people crave to have children and family, and especially in the past, it was considered a good thing to have children and stuff. These days, everyone runs away from it, and you know, there's a fertility crisis because people don't. I don't know. I mean, you know why? Because everyone's so busily seeking their own. You know, that's part of the problem. Selfishness. You have sold yourselves for naught, and you shall be redeemed without money. You didn't get any value in return for what you sold yourself for. And like this is like the ripoff of drugs and alcohol. Is that especially? I remember I was telling my daughter about nicotine. I'm saying it was really a terrible drug if you think about it. I remember when I was in high school trying it for the first time. I was 17, and I remember I inhaled properly and got that hit of a cigarette, the tobacco nicotine taste. Not the taste, but got it into my lungs, got it out without dying, because I remember as a kid trying to smoke, and you know, I didn't do it right. But then I did it right. I'm like, oh, this is a weird feeling, and I had this weird kind of high. Not particularly enjoyable, but you felt like you wanted to do it again for some reason. Well, and then basically that stops, and then pretty soon you just have to smoke cigarettes in order to feel normal. And I think, and they create an anxiety that like nicotine gives you an anxiety to which it is the cure. It's such a rotten thing. You know what I mean? It like gets in your system, and then when you try to stop, you start feeling anxiety and all the withdrawal symptoms of nicotine. And then I remember when I quit, I basically laid on the couch for 3 days because I just couldn't handle the the withdrawal. It was very intense, and it's such a ripoff. You know what I mean? You end up spend all this money, just to get a fix of something that no longer provides you with much anything except relief. That, oh, I finally got another cigarette. It was such a ripoff. You know what I mean? Like, and when you get involved, when I think about when I got involved with tobacco, it's like I sold myself into a servitude that offered me just about nothing. You know what I mean? Something that's like you sell yourself, you sell yourself, but you get nothing in return. You know, like in Isaiah 55, I had it at the beginning here. You know, wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? You know, people sell themselves. They give up their money, but they don't get value in return. They get nothing. They get wind. They get emptiness. And so Israel sold itself for nothing. There was no, you know what I mean? They turned their back on the Lord and served idols and committed abomination and got in return nothing other than the wrath of God. But he offers them, because he's looking at Jerusalem, which is prophesied his holy city, his bride, the Lamb's wife. She must be redeemed. The thing is, while the city has two sides, there's like the fallen idea of the city, and then there's the righteous. The righteous city is taken, the people who inhabit are taken from among the unrighteous. And they themselves need redemption. Like the fact that we all go into captivity, that those who serve the Lord survive and the remnant returns and all that may be true, but doesn't negate, of course, our need for a redeemer. Or it's not that we're carried through on our own righteousness. It's just that they, when they see the wrath of God coming on the world, look about themselves and they turn to God and they look to God and they trust in God. As opposed to the others who keep trying to, they flee from judgment in hopes of that there be some place to hide. Because when the wrath, just like it talks about in the book of Revelation and Isaiah, when it talks about they will go into the dens of the rocks and hide themselves in the dens of the rocks, saying, "Fallen." They don't want to face judgment. When they, especially the more so when they see it coming, when they want to avoid judgment. You just look around you in the world. Why do people go along with the rule, with the continued nonsense about fighting this pandemic? It's an endemic. It's over. There's no pandemic anymore. It's done. Where everyone's going to have COVID all the time. Stop testing for it. It's just cut it out. It's over. You know what I mean? But as long as people keep playing along. When we come to crisis, we should do the right thing. At least once we realize it. I mean, maybe, like I know people who, when the vaccine first came out, like just jumped on it, right? And that's fine. Like I said, when the masks, I wasn't wearing masks when they were recommending it. But then at some point, in the 2 weeks to slow the spread, but then it became mandatory afterwards, and it was a month into it. And that's why, starting Memorial Day of 2020, I stopped wearing my mask. And subsequently, I had to wear one again because of the hospital and stuff like that. But from day to day, every time I'm able to take it off, I take it off. I see people walking down the street alone with their mask on. I was saying, you can take that off. They must not know. Who isn't telling them? And you think, well, what's the big deal about masks? It's like, I don't know, it's been 20 months. It's just, they jack people up with fear. There are things to fear. So I'm saying, though, it's like, but here's the thing. There are people who know. They know what I'm saying is right. It's like, this is all done. This is all BS at this point, especially. It's becoming more and more clear the level of BS we've been subject to. I mean, I haven't changed my mind in a year or in more. I made up my mind in May last year because I was watching carefully. I was following the science. When we know better, we can't do what we know is wrong. But we're afraid of the judgment of society. I walk to the store without a mask, and I see someone give me a look sideways. I know they think, jerk. He doesn't care. He's just spewing his filthy spittle and germs all over everyone. As I walk with my mouth closed in silence. But as I'm not talking loudly on my cell phone, it's just whatever. But they got no material thing, but we're saying you will be redeemed without money. Well, there's several levels I could look at that. But of course, Christ, we were redeemed by the blood of Christ, first and foremost, in the ultimate sense. Only in the blood of Jesus can redemption be found. You can't buy it. You can't, because we don't have enough money to redeem ourselves in the ultimate sense that God redeems us. To buy his salvation, we can't afford it. Can't afford it. He laid his life down and said, "Can you pay?" You can't pay that price because he was paying a bigger price than you can ever pay. He was losing more than you could ever lose by suffering the same things, because he was stooping more He was bending more. I mean, he was, in the sense of like lowering himself, humbling himself, becoming so humble. Like, we can't be so humble because we can't start off being God. When God lays his life down, that's a price that none of us can come close to. Our lives are not worth a whole lot. Not a whole lot. So then, and not compared to God's. Our lives are worth something because God says we're worth something. And because we have people who love us, who also value us. But all those lives are not, that is nothing compared to the life of God. And when it's laid down like that, in that way, no price could be paid. There's no money that could come up to that. And of course, when the Israelites were brought back from captivity, it was not with a ransom paid, literally. You know, there was no, you sold yourselves for nothing, you shall be redeemed without money. It's just a very straightforward way. They did not have to pay ransom for Israel to return. For thus saith the Lord, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. You're talking about the Egyptian, the slavery in Egypt, and then also the Assyrian captivity. Oppressed them without cause, I suppose because, there were causes for them to be oppressed, but not from the Assyrians' perspective. The Assyrian had no reason to oppress Israel. They were just an aggressor. It wasn't like Israel had been muscling in on their territory or sabotaging Assyrian caravans or otherwise harassing or attacking them. There was an unprovoked attack. There were provocations, but it was, hey, pay us money. You're provoking us to attack you. Okay, now therefore, what have I here, saith the Lord, that my people is taken away for naught? They're sold, in that sense, they're sold for nothing. It's like people will comment in the Bible how there's verses that talk about how you can sell a family member because it was customary to sell your children or even yourself into service in order to pay debts. But there are also very strict rules about that. It was more like making someone work for someone for it was like indentured servitude in many ways. Like I said, the kind of chattel slavery practice in America 150 years ago had particularly, and people don't like to acknowledge this, but it had some particularly nasty things to it. And like I said, I've said this many times, part of the problem is because they were good people, basically, who believed themselves good, that they were capable of doing such evil. Because when you tell yourself you're good, but you want to do something evil, you justify your evil in some way. And they worked hard to dehumanize blacks and to say that they were subhuman and all that. Because there are racial differences that make it easy to do that. They look different. And also because they were generationally kept from having an education, and as slaves, and so they could not really. It was hard for them to express themselves as equals because they were kept from being equal. That was important to keep them like animals. That's why you occasionally see historic figures like. Who's the guy I'm thinking of? I can see his picture. Whatever. Black leaders from like the 19th century or during the American Revolution, even, who were educated and they were brought around so people because people would say they can't learn. They can't. They're too much like the animals. And so they dehumanized them, and so it enabled the people to behave inhumanly towards them, and also to treat them with contempt, and in an attempt to justify an evil that was being done in a land where people thought themselves good Christians. But then there are people who are not good Christians who also are subject to this dehumanization, and then you dehumanize these people to them, And since they're not good Christians particularly, well, they'll whip them raw, you know. They'll treat them like the worse than animals. And generally, that's often how they were treated. People wouldn't treat a horse that badly, you know, some of the treatments they received. Same thing, you know, all this carrying away captivity, the enslavement in Egypt, you know, that's very similar type of idea. You know, and some bondages are worse than others. But the scriptures, the reason it has rules about it is to govern a common practice. It's just like the law of divorce. You know, the Pharisees asked him if it was lawful to divorce your wife for any cause. Because it doesn't, the Old Testament doesn't specify. He says, Moses suffered you to write a bill of divorcement because of the hardness of your hearts. Some laws exist because men are evil. And so the divorce, a laws governing divorce, it's suffered to be so, even in the Bible, which it says, you know, the two shall become one flesh. And Jesus said that it should be till death do us part. You know, and I believe that. But also I know that it's like that, you know, sometimes that doesn't work out for people because they marry badly and then they get a divorce. And God suffers it to be so even in his law. Just like slavery, he suffers slavery to be in the law because people will sell their children and there should be rules about it. He could forbid it, but you know, the world they lived in that's not how things worked. I suppose in some ways it's just, you know, I don't know. It's not always obvious to me, the explanation is like, well, why this, why that? It's like, but everything as God saw it fit is ultimately the explanation I accept. They that rule over them make them to howl, and my name continually every day is blasphemed. You know, my people are taken away for naught. What's going on here? You know, he says, now therefore, my people went to Egypt. The Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Now what's going on? My people are taken away for nothing. They that rule over them make them to howl, and my name continually is blasphemed. Continually every day. Boy, that's right now. I don't know that I qualify America as God's people. You know what I mean? Because it's not... There's an interesting thing. Obviously, the Jews are God's chosen people. You know, they're his. Historically, that's the case. But through the gospel, the Gentiles are offered to enter in through the mediation of Christ into a familial relationship, Jew and Gentile, in one body, which is the church. You know what I mean? And they are also inheritors of the promise and children of Abraham because of faith and by faith. And so many of the promises to Israel, in some way, especially a spiritual way, apply to everyone in the church. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of the blessings you see from Abraham on down, especially blessings and stuff. But we do not have to follow the same customs and laws and carnal commandments. And also, in some sense, I think some of the carnal blessings about you shall return to the land, that for me is more spiritualized. You know, this maybe is the land of my promise. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like this personal connection to the land of Israel and Jerusalem. To me, that is for the Jews. Like that specific place, you know. Though I'm a citizen of the heavenly Jerusalem, which descended from God out of heaven, and always will be at home there. You know what I mean? But the land of Israel is for Israel, in my opinion. Well, I'm just using that to designate how some promises of the Old Testament, I feel that they transfer to us, and others less so, and maybe spiritually. You know what I mean? Like the land and returning to Zion. I don't take a lot of that literal, but I do take it in a spiritual sense, returning to God and returning to the holy city into the righteous path. To me, that's what returning to Zion means for me, is I return to the place where God put his name, and I look upon him whom they pierced, and I think about, I go there in my mind to the place of the skull where the Lord laid his life down. I return to God's word and to the things he has taught. And thus I am, I'm in God's holy land. Because a lot of these things can be decoupled from their carnal aspect and understood for the church. Right? But also, now the fact that, but America, though, almost exclusively is founded by people who are laying claim to the promises of Christianity. And so, and our country is still like 70% Christian. So there's a lot of blurred lines there when you have such a mass of Christian people. Now, we don't have a Christian government, no. But the nation has been Christian since its founding. It's a Christian nation. The people that make up the nation were Christian. And now it's a little different. I think it's fair to say that is kind of, well, here's the thing. Now we have the uncircumcised and the unclean among us. Those who have abandoned their Christianity, like I said, like the renegade Jews, who do not follow the covenant of Moses, who, like Esau, profane people who cared not for the things of God. Like the sons of Belial, who were of Benjamin, who raped that girl in that story in the Judges. The men of I can't remember the name of the city right off the top of my head. It's all right. There's some bad dudes lurking among Israel in the Old Testament who could be heirs of the promise, but instead are more like Esau or worse. So also in the church, there's a lot of bad people. I was watching this Catholic not priest, he was a Catholic layman complaining about the priesthood, how it's been infiltrated by homosexuals. Right up the chain of command, the bishops, and how for years this child sex abuse thing is really a homosexual protection racket, where they're in the seminaries, they're polluted with homosexuality, and he was making these accusations. And it's basically been infiltrated by atheists and homosexuals and pedophiles. They see a position. What's happening in our schools right now? We're beginning to see how many pedophiles have infiltrated the schools. That's why they're trying to show them books about pedophilia. That's why they're trying to talk to them about sex at a younger and younger age. That's why they want to get boys dressing in different clothes to act like girls and to confuse them so as to make them more vulnerable to the predations of predators. And so why they want to get out in the open. Men with surgically implanted breasts and wearing dresses and makeup to be around children when they've been, a man who has sexualized himself as a woman. That's what a cross-dressing is. A man will put on, like, he will sexualize himself, because makeup use is a sexualization process. You redden the lips so it looks like they're red, because apparently the lips go flush with blood when women are aroused. I never noticed, but okay. But they put red lipstick on, they highlight the eyes, whatever. All those things are meant to sexualize. Everything. The high heels are meant to lift up the butt so it looks more round or whatever. All that stuff. The dresses, the cleavage, all that stuff, the accentuation of the curves. When men cross-dress, they're putting on a sexualized vision of a woman, and then they want to go among children to read them storybooks. And they're placing storybooks about pedophilia. So, I mean, how long does it take people to realize that, like, as they did with the priesthood, so they're doing with the schools, and they want you to accept it, which is hilarious because this will not be accepted. They went too far. Because I just can't see people sitting down and taking this. Because they will be exposed. Because they expose themselves because they do weird stuff. And even exposing a child to explicit material it's criminal. I think it already is criminal. You don't have to make a new law even. You can't show sexually explicit children to a minor. I mean, within a context of an education and anatomy and all that. But I'm talking pornography, that kind of explicit. Or books about, I'm simply not curious enough to inform myself too much on the details of what I'm talking about, but there are things going on. And it occurs to me that what we have is people who want to get close to kids, to influence kids. Like you look at what they do. They go and they become priests. They go and they become, obviously it's a very patient game you must have to play as that sort of thing. But they have an agenda. They want to normalize that behavior. There are groups of people who want to normalize that behavior. And right now they're being greeted with sympathy. All these men have to do is put on a dress and sexualize themselves like a woman, and then they'll be celebrated. And teach little boys to do so. I mean, what is wrong with people? And consider that we're being faced where, like, they're the rule, like I said, there was a governor candidate who said parents have no right to have any say over what their kids are taught in school. The funny thing is, I think he meant it like in the sense of like, no, I don't know. Like, I certainly wouldn't want to tell a teacher how to teach algebra. Here's the problem. Most people don't know how to teach. I don't know. I always have the public schools and all that. It's just such a, you have a class of like 20 or 30 kids. They all learn differently. I mean, maybe 15 of them learn one way, and that's the way you teach the class. But you got then 10 that learn another way that are barely able to keep up, and then 5 that are totally lost because they need something else. And how they deal with that, I don't know. But when you start telling parents that their children don't belong to them and they belong, that's gonna make people start howling. You can bet. I think that's howl more in a sense of like from deprivation and from the horrors. That's the thing, is that's not far behind. When having people rule over you, they had better be competent and benevolent, to have the interests of their people at heart. Very often they're not. They're just up there happy to be in charge and to be at the top spot and rich and powerful. It's extremely exciting. My name every day is blessed. They speak evil of God constantly. My people are taken away from all time. The rule of them make them to howl, and my name is blasphemed all the time. And people don't have much patience for God. People hate. I mean, people hate. They hate the gospel. They hate Jesus. They hate the Lord. They speak evil of him. The name of Jesus is dragged through the mud. And the name of God also, if you just in a generic sense. But what I was saying before, I thought I'd wrap up this thought, is as the church is somehow, as the United States is kind of a Christian nation, or has been, when the children fall away, and it's a lot like that. It is a lot like what happened in Israel. Was Israel a Jewish nation, so to speak? Were they when they were carried into captivity, the Jews were not a Jewish nation, so to speak. It was because they were doing un-Jewish things. We would call them Jewish today. They wouldn't have called it back then. They would call it living the covenant. I don't know. They wouldn't call it that either. But whatever they would have called it, walking with God, perhaps, because that was sometimes, Noah walked with God. Walking with God is something that people don't always do. You know what I mean? And if they don't, in a nation that is sort of blanketed under there, you can have the same kind of effects. And also when you see rulers insensitively crushing people, there's something wrong with that society. There's something wrong with what's going on in that society. And that's what they're doing. They're crushing people. I almost call him O'Biden. Barack O'Biden. He is ruling with an iron fist. He was advertised as this sort of milquetoast nothing burger kind of candidate, and he comes in with the fist of iron. You know what I mean? Swearing he wasn't going to mandate vaccines, and then he's like, you will be vaccinated. It's crazy. The iron fist of Lord Biden. Because I'll tell you what, because that's why people don't want to be pushed around. You consider the fact that they're administering the vaccine wrong in many cases, as far as the technical way you administer the vaccine into the muscle tissue, which I don't have any expertise on, but I've read enough of it now to be also like, I don't want to get any heart problems since it's in my DNA to have heart problems. So I don't want to have any from the jab. And so if I was going to decide to do that, I'd want to make sure it was done properly, or allow any of my children to be done. I wouldn't allow my kids. Well, at this point, I'm flat out, I'm not interested. As I told people, I would consider it. Like I said, it's about when they start telling you what to do, and it's wrong. They're telling you to do the wrong thing. It's like, just run into the flames. What? I just want to run out the exit. No, run into the flames. It'll be all right. Trust us. I'm just going to run out the exit, because it's like, don't always do as you're told. You just stand here, get in this line. Into the boxcar you go. Okay, come on, now into the showers. Oh, okay, now you're dead. Therefore my people shall know my name, and their lives be behold as I. I guess, well, we'll pick it up with verse 6, it's fine. I'll pick up with verse 6 tomorrow. Thanks for joining me in the study. I look forward to being back again tomorrow.
Ho! Everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye, buy and eat, yea, come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good. Let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come to me, here and your soul shall live. I will make a covenant with you, everlasting, the sure mercy.